Well, Dave, welcome to October. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Fall is here in New England.
I love it. I love it. I got sweaters, pumpkins, apples,
Pumpkins.
big things
It's
happening.
actually it actually doesn't bother me when I walk into CVS and I see Halloween stuff that's been out for 2 months now. That actually makes some sense at this point.
My favorite thing is like Home Depot because they are so ahead of the curve on it all. It's like July 4th and then like Halloween stuff pops up. I'm like, oh,
We don't have anything else. Fill the shelves.
I know. But October is a good month because, end of the year, we got 3 months ahead of us. And I feel like this 3 months in particular goes by so fast.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got year end coming up, so you're like, I'm gonna get my goals in for 2019. You've got year end planning, so you're looking at next year, and then you've got Halloween, Thanksgiving, year-end holidays. It just bang, 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 bang.
That and like, as business owners, like there's accounting stuff that has to get done. You're trying to get your carrier goals going.
Yep,
So it's like, I just feel like that end of the year, like so much gets crammed into 90 days, which is why we're talking about time management today.
absolutely.
I have this theory about time management that if you think about all the things you squish into the month of December and how productive you are between like parties and cooking and decorating and shopping and all the things to make our social media profiles look like we're normal functioning humans that you do. I mean, it's outrageous the amount of stuff you can get done in December when you put your mind to it.
Absolutely. It's like my theory on how hard we work when we're going on vacation, right? So we always seem to get a bunch of stuff done on Fridays. We always seem to get a bunch of stuff done when we're going on vacation. For salespeople, the end of the month, end of the quarter. For everybody, end of the year. It's like we always, when we have to do it, we do it. We need to put ourselves in better position so that we don't have to do it. Just
Right.
make it a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more flat.
Or it's like when things get chaotic, we have to press our nose to the grindstone and just bust a move, right? Like
Right.
not keep putting things off. But before we dive into our best time management tips for insurance agencies, what is going on in the month of October for you, Dave?
October, busy month, using that
What
word.
was that? What did you what
Yeah, yeah, using that word. Yeah, I know.
stop
So yeah, so that was a little intentional here, so that we can have that quick discussion, and we'll talk about a little bit more detail. But I wanted to call out on that. So very productive month for me. Some stuff locally here in Massachusetts. Also headed to Montana, Virginia, and down and then up into New Hampshire. Couldn't remember the name of the state just north of me. Um, so some client work. October is kind of the month of the conference. So 3 or 4 different speaking engagements at different events as well.
Love
What
it.
about you? Where you headed?
So I'm going back down to Memphis, which is always a good time. We're doing it's a 2 training days, Apex retention, Apex sales, and the agency down there. I then get to speak at the IAB Young Agents event, which I think is a couple of states, Pennsylvania, Maryland, their Young Agents events. Heading back, I think, to Oklahoma. Then I'm going to go to Northern California for a Paradiso Presents up at Heffernan Group, which is great. Heffernan's
Nice.
large agency, good partner of ours. Headed to Virginia as well. And then tying it all up with the big event in Massachusetts where we speak 1, 2, 3, 4 times and have a booth there. So ending the month and Halloween really strong on that front. So excited and just ready to tackle a great month of October to bring us into the end of the year.
Yeah, excellent. So what are we talking about today?
Oh, Dave. We're talking about our newest AppX program, which is the time management, because the one thing that you and I know every agency faces is the word busy. And I don't have time. And I'm so stressed out. Time. And we know that most people in insurance have never really learned things like how to manage their inbox, how to really manage suspenses, how to handle seasonality of a book business, and we want to bring this directly to agencies to get a better handle on time, reduce the stress and workload, give a better customer experience, and ultimately help you guys get more and more proactive, not reactive.
Yeah, I think as we were doing a lot of our training and our agency assessment, when we go into agencies, we would find this to be the biggest obstacle. So we had built into all of our training programs some discussion on time management, but we soon realized that this is a much larger issue than just one subsection of a larger training. So we built out this whole program to say, okay, we need to tackle this. Then this will help not just with the trainings that we do, your strategic planning, but in everything that you do, any kind of procedure, process, system you're trying to implement. Change management is always hard. If we can solve some of the time management component of that, you can implement those additional items.
Well, and as a business owner myself, like we talk about all the time, like I hate when I hear my team feeling overwhelmed or busy. Like I take it kind of personally, like what are we doing wrong? Why is it so crazy? And sometimes you just have to realize it has some impact to people's personal lives. And sometimes it just means that you guys just got to find your way out of the weeds. But sometimes it just means it's a crazy time of year, right? Like you just started off the podcast with October being busy. Some times of our year are a little bit more robust than others.
Yes. Yeah.
So for a little sneak peek to our loyal listeners and fans, what we thought would be fun is built into our time management 6-month program are what we call like the 6 big concepts of time management. We then go forward and break it down into very specific email management, task management, things like that. But we can get everybody's heads around these 6 concepts. We are firm believers and have, experience in saying that we do this, the rest of the world works well. Right, Dave?
Absolutely. 100% agree. Let's get into it. You want to go first?
First of all, I'd love to go first.
All right. Excellent.
So the first concept is first call resolution. This is so huge. And immediately when we talk to account managers on this, they go, well, I can't do that all the time. And I said, that's okay, but you can do it probably 80 or 90% of the time. Like whether it's warm transferring a claim, taking a payment, doing an endorsement on the phone, almost all of your work could be done holding a customer on the phone, taking it to completion, logging the note in your management system, and then having no trailing work after it. So if you did this, you're not waiting for 15 minutes of silence. You're handling it right on the spot. So Dave, with first call resolution, where are all the reasons why people say that doesn't work? And I want to kind of defend them. Throw them at me.
Sure. Number 1, the client doesn't want to stay on the phone.
The client does not want to stay on the phone if you are not a personable human. So you have to be able to hold a conversation, talk to them about their weekend, chat them up. And even if it's just let them know what you're doing. All right, I'm logging in the carrier so we can process this endorsement. People are fine with it. In fact, most people would rather know their new premium on the phone than if they get off the phone and you have to do this back and forth. The only time I'll reason with this is that if you have a processing team that processes the endorsement, just keep the person on the phone while you're taking that information down, send it over, and then you're done. But people don't want to have dead silence. And the reality is, Dave, in my personal opinion, it's that the agent actually doesn't want to stay on the phone with the client versus vice versa.
Agreed. Absolutely. Issue number 2, I'm too busy. I have this whole stack of things I have to get to. So I need to solve this. I mean, not solve this. I need to take this information so I can put it at the bottom of the stack so that I can work on the item at the top.
So I think this is the primary outlast the suck, right? Like if you outlast the suck and start doing this, that pile gets smaller and now you're as real time as you can be. So, the reality is that's a temporary problem if you make a commitment to first call resolution.
Agreed. All right, I'll give you one more. Technology. So I don't have a comparative rater, or my comparative rater doesn't give me accurate quotes.
So the reality is, and this goes into, I think, especially with reshops, like I advocate that you can do a reshop on the phone with somebody. You just have to get good at the process, right? So no comparative rater gives accurate quotes for the most part. But the idea is if they're already in PL Rater and you need to reshop them, I could say, Dave, great. Have your information here. Let me finalize. Is this still right? Is this still right? Great. What's going on is we're going to go out and kind of test the market, see what some of the rates are coming back at so I can firm them up with you. This is just going to take a second, and you just keep talking to the person. And then you say, here's some estimates. Are these a little bit in the ballpark we're looking for? Great. Let's try to firm up a final rate with Safeco. You just explain the process to the person. I will say this though, Dave, there's one more that I get that I think we need to talk about.
Okay.
The phone is ringing off the hook.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd say that happens, 10, 15% of the time. If the phone's ringing off the hook, take it and do it, but go with your plan A. Plan A is to do it on the phone and move from there. And if you do this, the trailing work stops, the missed expectation stops, the documentation improves, and your customer experience goes up tenfold.
Yep.
Dave, what's your next one?
So the one that I want to bring up is a 2-minute rule. So anything that you can do in 2 minutes, you want to just do it and get it done. I feel especially very strongly about this when it comes to email. I find that a lot of people, when I sit down with them, we look at their email inbox, they're like, oh yeah, I read that email, I need to do this. And then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I read that email, I just need to delete it. It's like, well, if you read the email, why didn't you take the action? Especially if you need to delete, move it into a folder, unsubscribe from it. Like, you've already looked at it. That's 90% of the work. Just do that next step. Other things that need action on them, if it's something you can do quickly, do it and get it done. Move on with it. So if you get an email and it's like, I just need to reply, or I need to forward this information to the underwriter, just do it and get it done, as opposed to letting it sit there on top of your stack. And the same thing with phone calls and walk-ins. Like, if it's something that can be done quickly, get it done. If it's something, obviously, first call resolution we just talked about, get it done. If it's something that's going to take more than 2 minutes, we need to get it off of our different to-do lists that we have. So when I sit down with people, I see, okay, what do you have to do today? So they pull up their email, and there's 150 emails. And then they pull up their suspenses, and they have all these open tasks going on. They always have a notebook with things, or sticky notes, and they have all of these to-do lists all over the place. And I think the key is anything that takes more than 2 minutes, get that into your management system. You've got your documentation there, and you have a built-in system that is basically the items that you need to do. So this way you're working in one system. You have everything in there. You can just pull up, here are the things that I need to do. As things come in, you want your management system to kind of be mission control. So everything kind of comes in there, and this is where we're going to handle everything. Everything else is just landing pads. So an email comes in, we want to take it, either work on it, get it out, or put it into mission control and let it kind of go through the process. This also helps with documentation. It helps your coworkers if somebody else has to pick it up. It helps reassigning stuff. So if you do have a processing team, okay, this now has to go over to them. You can just reprocess it, send it over to processing, reassign it. The agency management system was built for this functionality. I believe that we need to do a better job of taking advantage of it. So I'd say follow that 2-minute rule. If it's something you can do immediately, right away, get it done. If not, get it into your management system for all of those benefits.
Absolutely. And, I think everyone has to understand that just because you think you should touch something, I hear it all the time, right? Well, it's just easier if I do it. It just takes me just as long to get over there. And sometimes I hear agency owners say that, and I say, in a perfect world, right? To your point about technology and everything else, it takes 2 minutes as long as everything's working 100% in a perfect world and you don't get interrupted in a phone call. But you have a processing team that generally isn't on the phones or is all doing transactions for a reason. And I think this goes in the idea that sometimes people like that transactional work because it means that they don't have to, or they get too busy to sell or do renewal calls, et cetera. So the 2-minute rule is brilliant. And I think people have to think of themselves a little bit like an air traffic controller today, right? Everything's coming in and I have to get it in the right spot so that I can prioritize my best use of my time.
I actually am even more dramatic on that point. Let's say it takes you 10 times longer to help somebody else get it done.
Mhm.
Okay, so if let's say it takes me 2 minutes to just do it, it's going to take me 20 minutes to explain it to somebody else. And let's say it takes me 5 times to explain it to somebody else. So now I'm like, that's 100 minutes. It's over an hour and a half of my time. But after a couple of weeks, a couple of months, depending on how often this comes up, now you have 0 minutes that you're spending on it. So spend a little bit of time this week to train somebody else on how to do it so that you no longer have to do it. Delegate those low, I don't want to call them lower level tasks, those tasks that can be delegated, can be reassigned. Get somebody else trained on doing them, and don't allow yourself to fall into that trap that it's easier, quicker, faster if I do it.
No doubt. Which brings us to my next topic, which
Getting hit by a bus?
no.
Oh, not getting hit by a bus.
I like I've seen it all the time where agency owners go like, what happens if you get hit by a bus? And I'm like, oh, all I can think about is my poor family. That's how it works. But we flip it around and what happens, like act like you're going to win the lottery at lunch, right? So I come from a banking background, which meant in many banks, you had a mandatory 2-week vacation that you had to take where they would audit your desk. And obviously this was for different embezzlement things, all that kind of stuff. But the idea is, and this is what everybody needs to get in their head. And when I say this in front of account managers, like, oh yeah, no, that would be so great. Anybody, if your kid is sick, you break your ankle, you win the lottery at lunch, everybody should be able to dive in and help a client. Not sit at your desk and go through your notepad, your 700 emails, your tasks that are duplicates and all over the place. If you are on a call with somebody, everybody should be able to dive in the management and get the job done. If you are at lunch, everybody should be able to help that client. But what happens is we have the notebook, the desk, the papers, the this, the edit, and we say
the sticky notes.
The sticky notes, or we have the idea that I only want my customers to talk to me.
Right.
No one else does it the way that I do it. And when I hear that, I'm like, well, we should do it the way that the agency needs it done. And so we really force people into the idea of, hey, act like you're going to win the lottery at lunch and anyone should be able to dive in and help your client. Because, someone calls out sick with the flu, Dave, and people are sitting at desks. There's this massive overhaul. I call it, we find the dead bodies, the quotes that didn't get done, all the things start coming out of the woodwork. And you come back to a terse conversation from the team versus a, hope you're feeling well.
Yeah, and I think that the key to this is understanding that obviously it makes your coworkers have a little bit easier run of it when you're not there, but there is a benefit to yourself as well, so that when you come back, you're not dealing with all of these things that blew up because your coworkers couldn't help the client. So now the clients are upset. Now things didn't get done. Now your desk is in shambles because people were like rummaging through it trying to find different things. So you certainly want to do this for your coworkers, but also for yourself. And then there's a third party we should probably be considering when using the winning your lottery at lunch concept. Right, Cal?
Is that the customer?
Yeah, that would be the customer. So think of the client experience here, right? So the client calls, they've got a billing question, and nobody's there to answer it, or they were in the process of being answered. Now they have to start from the beginning. Oh, here's my history. Here's what happened. Now I have to re-explain it to you. And we all get frustrated by this when it happens to us. I can't tell you the number of times I've called the airline. Favorite thing to do is travel. Call the airline, explain my situation to, I don't want to name the airline that starts with an A and then has another A in it. But then they transfer you, oh, you're in the wrong department. Oh, okay, fine. I didn't know that I was going to have to be on hold for 30 minutes and then explain my problem for 20, just have to redo it again. So we hate it when it happens to us. This is one of the ways we can prevent it from happening to our clients.
No doubt, no doubt. And if we think about time management, like, why are we duplicating efforts? And everybody's going to take a lunch break, right? Like, let's make sure we have coverage on that. While you talk about your next topic, I have to go get one prop.
Okay. So one of my favorite topics one of the favorite expressions that I learned about a couple of years back is the term "eat the frog." So Mark Twain had an expression. There's different versions of this out online, but my favorite one is, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if your job is to eat two frogs, it's best to eat the first one, the biggest one, first. So the idea behind this is that we tend to not do the most difficult tasks. So, and this happens not just in the insurance agencies and the insurance industry, this happens in businesses, this happens in personal lives. We tend to put off the more difficult tasks and stay busy or even accomplish and be productive, but on things that aren't as important or aren't as dire as that larger task. So number one thing that we can do is first thing in the morning, tackle the biggest thing that you have to do that day first thing. That difficult client you have to call back, that negotiation you have to do with the underwriter, your prospecting calls, the things that you don't want to do those things first in the day, which will allow you to eat the frog. Because what happens is when you don't eat the frog, it sits on your shoulder all day. It just staring you in the face, just waiting for you to eat it. And so this makes your entire day less productive because you constantly in your back of your head go, oh, I got to do that. I got to do that. I don't want to do that. And then the reverse happens, or the inverse happens when you actually do that difficult thing, because now it's out of your head. You have a sense of accomplishment first thing, that you're done. You got the hardest thing you were going to have to do that day, get that done, and then move on to the things that will be that much easier to accomplish.
Like this frog on my shoulder?
Like that frog, yep. My favorite little frog.
I think that people, it's pretty ugly when you really look at this frog. I think most people are so trained to do the 2-minute things that we tax our brains when we have to start thinking about the bigger projects. So everybody likes the little transactions, but hates to sit down and do a reshop, right? So you really have to be intentional and get it out of the way, because you won't find a clear 45 minutes in your day. It just isn't going to happen. So I love.
Well, I find too that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was done.
Oh, I was just going to say, you always have those days where you feel like you're running around and then you're like, I didn't accomplish anything today. And I think that means you didn't eat the frog that day, because you should always be able to say, not that I can account for every minute of my day, but like if it's noon and I'm like, I can't believe it's already noon, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. That means you've done a lot of like tiny minor tasks that needed to get done, but you didn't tackle some of those bigger things. So I think that, noon and the end of the day are great times to look back and say, did I eat the frog today? To get that kind of established. So at 8 o'clock and at 1 o'clock, we're thinking, what do I need to do this morning, this afternoon, as big, large tasks?
And if you are vegan or vegetarian, maybe it's just eat the turnip.
Yes, or the tofu frog.
The tofu frog, the toe frog. So then that leads me to like my favorite thing in the world, which you just said earlier. I counted yesterday at an agency that I was at for 2 days that they used the word busy 25 times. And that's about an 8-person agency. So we have to banish the word busy. And I say this with all love in my heart. If I called my mother right now, I'm tempted to do it. She'd like just put her live on our podcast. Say, Mom, what are you up to? She's like, I'm so busy. My mother's retired. My mother is probably busy ironing sheets coming out of the dryer or thinking about the cookie recipe that she's going to make for Christmas. And that makes her very busy. And I get that, but she's so busy, so busy, so busy. And I think to myself, well, I am flying all over the country, running a few businesses, doing all sorts of stuff. And I never use the word busy just out of principle, because busy doesn't say anything. It says jack squat. All it does, if I tell you, Dave, I'm so busy, do you feel like you can call me and ask for help?
Nope.
And if I'm showing signs of being busy, like my hair's on fire, I'm running around, I'm having a panic attack, Do you want to help engage with me, or do you then feel stressed out?
Nope, stresses me out.
So when we think about the word busy, it's a shell. And here's the thing as a business owner, hey, where's this quote? Oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I didn't get to it. Really, to me, busy is I forgot. It's not a big priority to me. I didn't do it. And it's an excuse that then makes somebody else feel bad. So if we banish the word busy, put little swear jars everywhere for the word busy, you will see how you change your demeanor on this one word.
Yeah, to me, the easiest way for me to think about this, kind of coming from a sales background, is I think about what I'm trying to accomplish in the day. So if at the end of the day, I was like, I did 10 quotes today, part of me is like, who cares? How many did you sell? So I kind of equate that, like, I did a lot of work today, but it didn't result in any type of production.
Sure.
So I think you've used this a lot, and we need to replace the word busy with productive. So it's great that I did 10 quotes, but I would much rather say I did 10 quotes and sold 5 policies than just I did 10 quotes. So we need to transition from the task to the result. And then that will allow us to transition from focusing on how busy we are to understanding where we're going to be more productive. So in your example, where's that quote? Here it is. I'm productive. I'm actually producing something that I was supposed to do.
Also, I mean, I just have the theory of why is busy bad? Like, so say you did 10 quotes and you sold 5 policies. Like, why are we kind of running around like, oh, I sold, I'm so busy today. Why don't we say, I sold 5 policies today? Like
Right. Right.
it's like the outcome and the pride of our work goes away because it's to me much, much more of an excuse than a legitimate situation. And that's where I struggle with the word busy. It's like, that's great that you were busy. I actually don't care. Like, what are we doing to get the job done?
Right. Well, and it doesn't just have to do with quotes and sales, right? If you're in, account manager, it could be I cleared out 35 old tasks today, or I got my email down under 10, or if you're in processing, I processed 75 endorsements today, or receptionist, I helped, 50 callers today. It doesn't have to just equate to how much did you produce in terms of new business sales. But whatever your role is, look at the result, what you're supposed to be doing, not what are the tasks that get you there.
Which I think goes into our 6th and final major concept.
Excellent. So yeah, so absolutely. So goals for the day. So I think the biggest one of the biggest things that I find is that everyone kind of has what I call a to-do list or a stack of work to do. And I find that there's no plan of addressing that. So I've got 100 things in my stack or on my to-do list today. When at the end of the day, I might have 105. Maybe if I'm lucky, I got it down to 98. But there's no plan to actually eliminate that workload. So I think there's a major difference between having a to-do list and having a plan. So to me, a to-do list is just, it's infinite. I scratch one off the top, I add one to the bottom. It just kind of keeps going. Instead of having just a to-do list, I like having a plan, or what I call a task list. And maybe this is a little bit of semantics in terms of the wording, but I want to have a finite number of things that I'm going to try to accomplish today. So how many outbound calls am I supposed to make today? How many open activities, open suspenses tasks do I have in my management system? How am I going to get that number cut down by the end of the day, or get completely caught up? Mention emails. How many emails do I have? How many do I want to get down to? Do I have an agency project I'm supposed to be working on? Do I want to get through all my mail, scanning? What are all of the things that I need to do, and have a more set, finite list of things that I'm going to accomplish today, so that at the end of the day, I can say, I had a plan this morning and I enacted that plan, versus I had a to-do list this morning and I still have a to-do list this afternoon.
That's so true. And I think that this goes into something I try to like preach on a soapbox to people. When you're picking your task due dates, how are you picking them? Like, oh, I set it out for a week. And then all of a sudden it's Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Christmas, whatever it is, and you have all the tasks for a day, you're not even going to be there.
Right.
Like that's not intentional. And the other thing is if Wednesday is a tough day, set people's expectations for Thursday or Tuesday. Like I don't understand why we randomly, arbitrarily pick dates to have our due dates on things without any intention. It literally makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that at least with a week, you've got a better shot of it landing on a day that you're going to be there. I know that there's a lot of agencies that do 3 days and 5 days. And this means 2 days a week, you're going to land on a weekend, which means on Monday, which is the day where you have the most inbound calls, most likely you have the most work to do, you've also added the most number of tasks to be accomplished.
And how do you think that makes you feel on that Monday? It seems to me like you'd be awful busy.
Yeah, and then right, and then it's just the snowball effect. So you don't get caught up by the end of the day Monday. So now it's Tuesday. So now you're still behind and busy on Tuesday. So
no doubt.
A little bit more thought process around assigning those tasks is absolutely a great idea.
And that's one of the things that we teach people in our AppX program is how to do that task management, put things on the right dates. We preach to people a lot, act like an underwriter. What do you get? First request, second request, third request, final request. A lot of time for people, unfortunately, I think is spent following up. And it's the same thing in sales too, right, Dave, with follow-ups with sales teams, whether it's account manager, sales teams. We need to limit the amount of time you're following up because one, a lot of times it's going to go into a black hole. But if we're more intentional, this is my final call, I'm shutting your file down. Dave, tell people, when they do that, what the difference is.
Oh yeah, we get about a 50% response rate on that final email that says, this is the last time I'm going to contact you. Now, the wording I think is very nice. It's very understanding.
Professional.
It's very professional, but it's clear and concise. And it just says, this is the last time I'm going to reach out to you. And we've seen a tremendous benefit to that. I'd love to almost have that as my first one because my response rate is so great on it. I'm not suggesting that you need to follow up more than once, but definitely kind of putting that in place, and then it makes them understand that your time has value too. And I think that's one of the major items with time management. I'll end my last thought on this is that we have to understand that our time has value, and I think a lot of the times we're too accepting of like just taking on everything and not saying like, well, my time has value, so I need to focus on this. I need to focus on that. You want this certificate in the next 3 seconds. Well, I can get it to you by 1 o'clock. Whatever the case is, making sure that the people understand that your time has value, it will allow them to have a little bit more respect for you and more respect for your time, which is really what we're trying to get at.
So Dave, as we wrap this up, let's just say people are just minds blown. They're driving in their vehicles. They're thinking, holy macaroni. Not only does my team need to listen to this podcast, but we need this desperately in our office as we go into the next year because I'm going to scream if I hear the word busy again. How can people get our help?
Absolutely. So I would say just reach out to us. You can go right onto the website. You can give us a call. Happy to jump on a quick have a quick conversation with you, explain a little bit more detail. There's a lot more concepts. There's a lot more to the training. As with all of our trainings, we actually come on site for a couple of days in addition to the virtual training. So definitely reach out to us, have a conversation, learn more about the program. More than willing to share some more of the ideas and explain what the training program looks like.
Excellent, excellent. And it's October, which means we're going into our end of year special. So what a great time. I'm going to give my, another shout out. If you are an agency owner listening to this, you should be contacting your companies, find out what carrier co-op money you have available too. That might help fuel some marketing, training, things that you can partner with us on. So definitely take that. But Dave, what a great podcast today.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Very timely.
Very productive podcast.
Very productive.
Well, we hope you guys all have a great month. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to pick our brain. And let's just start being more productive in every agency. And I think we can get a lot farther in life. So thank you guys.